And welcome back to Lantern Corp videos. Today's Lantern Corp video comes to us from Venom3421. And, oh god, I'm probably going to F this name up. Sam Wagel? I don't know for certain. Asking the question, what Lantern Corps does Samurai Jack belong into? Or belong in? And this is, when I really thought on Jack, I'm like, Jack, you want to talk to someone who runs the emotional gambit. Or, as a gamut? I think it's either way. Who runs the emotional spectrum? Jack runs the emotional effing spectrum. Like, literally, there are 6 full options, I think, for Jack here. Let's get a couple of the ones. Next, let's just get a bunch of the ones out of the way that he's not going to qualify for, in my humble opinion. He's not going to be a Black Lantern. Even though he's killed a lot of enemies, his enemies don't tend to be human, and therefore, it's not as big of a sin, say, on Jack's soul. Unlike when, in the final season, he finally killed a human by mistake. He ultimately, was struggling with the, emotional toll that put on him. So I don't think he's a Black Lantern, nor has he died. So I don't think he qualifies for that. He's now also not an avarice Lantern. Jack is not a greedy person. He had a goal, he achieved that goal, and he was content with everything beyond that. So I can't see him being an avarice Lantern. Then finally, Rage. Now, Jack did carry anger with him. And you could make an argument that Jack, especially in the final season, had a lot of anger to him. But that ultimately wasn't the thing that drove him for the majority of his time, including the final season. He was upset that he pretty much had just lost, his way back. So he was just kind of existing at that point. And there's obviously that famous episode where he had to fight his inner demons, and he basically overtook him. But, yes, he did have rage in him, sure, but anyone would have been angry in that scenario, and I think all of the emotions that follow on this list are going to just be better options. So right from the gate, Green Lantern, I think, is an obvious choice for Jack. I mean, this man has had to overcome so much with so much willpower to do so, overcome so much great fear to do so, including Aku himself. I mean, you have to kind of give it up to the idea that he is a Green Lantern. He's a main series protagonist, so it's a pretty solid option that he could be a Green Lantern. But just as likely, I think, is possibly a Yellow Lantern right now. And I got a hair in my glasses that's annoying me. Here we go. Is a Yellow Lantern ring. Now, this one I see a little less obvious, but remember, especially in the future, Jack was one of the only individuals, possibly the only individual, that legitimately scared Aku. And if you can scare someone who is the shape-shifting master of evil, then, and again, I'm just getting all these stray hairs. If you can scare the shape-shifting master of evil, pretty much evil incarnate, you're doing something right when it comes to fear. Plus, he gained himself a reputation throughout the majority of his, time in the future. And that reputation was was nothing minor. His name was known and he was feared by a lot of individuals. Mostly on the enemy side, but still. So I think fear is a likely option. But also, the man kind of embodied hope. He never, up until the very end, up until the final season, where he kind of had given up for a while, he never really gave up hope. And then, even though he lost it for a while, Blue Lanterns have done that. They've lost their faith. They've lost their hope. He ultimately gained it back by the end of the season in the series, and, his hope and faith was rewarded. Granted, he lost Ashi, but I honestly, I've seen that storyboard alternate ending where the 3 deities brought her back to reward him. I really like that ending better, to be frank. Because I'm like, yeah, dude, like, seriously, you couldn't have just let him keep the girl, or let something wrong. Couldn't let him be happy with the girl? No, you had to kill the girl. Like, Jesus. But other than that, though, no, the man is a guy who embodies hope. He instilled faith in people in the future. People came to his aid because of the hope he instilled in them in the final episode of the series. Like, you gotta say, he can't think little of the fact that he inspires hope. Now, Whitey is an interesting lantern corp for Jack. He's taken life before. He's taken, killed many evil things. A lot of it with them were robots, admittedly, but he's also killed non-robots, admittedly non-humans as well. But I actually think Jack is a very good candidate for life because of just how much he values life. Granted, he doesn't do a lot to feel alive, although the amount of combat he's gone through, you can make an argument he's done a lot to feel alive just through that alone. He's also spent a lot of time with friends in the future, the whole Scotsman, competition. Great at feeling alive, but he also has such a value for life. He does try to protect the innocent at all costs to protect life to the best of his ability. So I think he could actually be a solid candidate for a White Lantern ring. But then there's the final two. Now, the last two, one of them I think is another good option. The other one is a bit more of a stretch. First off is the Indigo League of Compassion, the Indigo Corp. Jack is a very compassionate man. He's always there to lend an ear, helping hand to others. And this is all because of his humanity and compassion for humanity. Compassion for others. And non-humans as well. We've seen him do so much to liberate non-humans from slavery, servitude, all that. I think his humanity is one of his greatest strengths as a character. Because at the end of the day, despite all of his training and a magical sword, he is just human. And he recognizes that and is able to identify and sympathize with people because of that. So I think his compassion is a very strong option as well. Last one, and this is honestly the one I don't think out of the 6 he's going to qualify for out of the 6. This is the bottom tier one. But Sapphire, now, he didn't find someone he actually fell in love with until the final end of the season. Or series. Until the series finale. Not finale, but you know what I mean. Till the final season. But he still loved his father, his mother, his country, his people, his land. And so you could make an argument to say he does what he does out of love and out of duty for that love. The problem is I think the other emotions we've covered, be it compassion, life, hope, fear, and will, all kind of trump whatever amount of love is driving him. I just think it's probably the weakest candidate of the 6. So that being said, out of the remaining ones, compassion, life, hope, fear, and will, what is the most likely candidate? Now, this actually gets kind of tough. It does. I will say this, though. I think fear is the second one from the bottom, and that is due to the fact that while he inspires great fear in the enemies, should know that all these 5, I think, are all... there's a scenario where he could gain any one of these 5, but the scenarios where he gains the Fear Lantern Ring are probably the least likely due to the fact that he doesn't inspire fear in everyone, because he's not trying to inspire fear in anyone who isn't an enemy. So I think, honestly, fear is probably the next one down. Better chance than love. Definitely a better chance than love, but still, it's only 4th, or 5th, I should say. So that leads us to the top 4. Now, the top 4, I'd probably say that the life one comes in at number 3. Or 4, sorry, number 4. And the reason for that is, it's actually more basic, that his hope, his will, and his compassion, I think, just overcome his not that his appreciation for life isn't grand. It's just the fact that because he's a warrior and he has taken the lives of, living beings, admittedly enemies that aren't human, he's limited by how much the Lantern Ring could qualify. It's kind of like Batman, actually. A very good example would be Batman. Batman briefly held a White Lantern Ring, but it did not consider him a good enough qualifier for it, due to the fact that despite his appreciation and value of life, he himself, just lacked the qualifications for it. And I think that would be Jack's problem as well. I think he lacks the overall proper qualifications overall. I think, though, it's still it has a better likelihood than fear or love, due to the fact that Jack has always had appreciation for life, and I think that leads him very far. Whereas Jack was not always feared, and, while he's always held love, it wasn't his driving force, ultimately, in the end. So that leaves us with compassion, hope, and will. And for me, this one, it feels like it's a kind of a Sophie's choice, because I think compassion, it's strong, but he lost a bit of his compassion in the final season. He did gain it back, obviously, similar to hope. But I think that because of his time in the future, Jack did become a little jaded, and he learned to become a bit more mistrusting of individuals. So I think that while he always held on to that compassion, I think that that jaded his abilities to be a Lantern of the Indigo Corps a little bit. Not a huge deal, but a little bit. Ultimately, I think this is still a good option. This definitely gets the bronze medal for me. But for me, it comes down to Hope and Will. And, I mean, boring choice. I think he's more likely a Green Lantern than he is a Blue Lantern. Because, and to be fair, this is an interchangeable one, frankly. Because Hope and Will are the two Lantern Corps that can actually work together effectively. There aren't any others that kind of, like, work that intertwine with each other perfectly. I mean, don't get me wrong. In theory, you could be a Rage Lantern and a Yellow Lantern without any difficulty whatsoever. Because, that rage inspires a lot of fear, and, you inspire great fear, so you could dual... I don't think we've ever seen someone do that, have we? That's a legit question. Have we ever seen someone dual wield a yellow and a red lantern ring? I don't think we have. I know there was a moment where, like, all, like, the heads of the respective Lantern Corps got, like, captured and they had to share rings, but I don't think someone used a red lantern ring and a yellow lantern ring. I can't remember exactly what it was and what combos they used. Either way, between green and blue, Hope, Will, and Hope, I am probably going to say the Will, just because of how much he had to go through to get back to the past, Samurai Jack. How much he had to go through to get through. And don't get me wrong, he never lost his faith until the final season, but the fact of the matter is he did lose his faith for a time. But he still strived on and kept going. He never lost the will to survive. And I think that is ultimately key there, is that while he lost his faith for a while, he never lost his will to survive. So ultimately, in silver place goes the Lantern Corps of Hope, the Blue Lanterns. And then number one, I do think he's probably a Green Lantern. But like I said, Jack runs the spectrum, man. He's got 6 possible options in my mind. And if you could think of a likely reason he could be one of the other 3, I'd love to hear it. But either way, I think Green, not surprisingly, and kind of on the boring side, is the most likely candidate for Jack for a Lantern Corps. That is just my opinion, though. Let me know what you think in the comments below. But thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. Hit that bell if you want to be notified. So thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you folks next time. Later.